All right, hello. This is John from Coach.Win. I'm really excited to bring a person I've known now, I just realized, for 23 years. Mo, who was instrumental in my career in the Entrepreneurs Organization as my first trainer when it came to doing forum and peer groups. And that's what we're all about today. We're talking about that. Our goal at Coach.Win is to bring great talent. Mo is one of those people that I've known again for a long time who's really helped people in a lot of different ways. So, Mo, why don't you give yourself a little introduction and background of your entrepreneurial journey?
Thank you, John. First of all, thank you for having me on your show, and such a pleasure to see you. It has been a long time since we've known each other, and what an honor. I took a class in entrepreneurship, and my teacher, many of your listeners will know, was Vern Harnish. And Vern, first of all, was the best teacher I ever had. And second of all, he just blew my mind from hello. And within a few months, I was graduating, and I just went to thank him for being the best teacher I ever had. And he offered me the job of associate director of EO. And back then, it was called YEO, Young Entrepreneurs
Yes.
Organization, right?
Yeah.
Remember? And back then, you were kicked out by 35, and then they increased it to 37, then to 40, and we know the rest of the story. It's just EO, and it's not young anymore. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I was there for a total of 7 years. Within the first year, Vern quit, and I became executive director. Um, it was an amazing job. I mean, I met amazing people like you. I traveled the world. And most importantly, I learned my craft. I learned this work of forum, these peer groups that are life-changing in my mind and many others, as I'm sure you've heard. And in 97, I decided to make that my business. And that's when I started Forum Resources Network. A few years later, we started another company providing peer groups for HBS alumni, and we started doing some work with Berkeley and Stanford. That company was called Alumni Forum Services. And the latest startup, which we just started literally within the last few months, is IFO, International Facilitators Organization. And we started that organization because I believe every human being deserves to be in a peer group, and that the world would be a better place if people had peer groups to support them and to help them on their life's journeys and to help them grow personally and professionally. So that's the nutshell of it. I'm sure there's a lot more detail I could dive into, but that's it in a nutshell.
That's great. And I know, for me, joining the Entrepreneurs Organization, being alone before that in my business, I think I was 6 years into my business, kind of feeling like, I'm not sure I'm a unique individual and do that. And joining that peer group made a difference. Rob and I, we do a lot of surveying of our companies. So not only the executives, but their key teams around them. And the things that come up a lot of time is this idea of communication and trust and being open to share. Can you just talk about, as people join, maybe explain a peer group both at the executive level and maybe at a key exec level, like just kind of what that looks like and how they're formed, but then also just how do people walk into those? Because I know I was nervous walking into my first EO and like what to share and how things change. Can you just kind of go over that, the mechanics of a peer group?
Yeah. So a peer group is roughly 8 people. I've seen them smaller, I've seen them larger. I say eight, 7, 8 is the sweet spot so that it's intimate enough and diverse enough to give you more perspective, to give you more learning. There's a structure. So it's not just a bunch of people getting around and, sitting and shooting the shit, as they say.
Yeah.
There's actually a structure. Everything is confidential, no judgment. You have to speak from experience. And really, in all of these kind of guidelines, what we're building is a safe environment that enables people to share openly, perhaps beyond what they thought they would share. So it is very common to encounter people who say, gosh, I've never shared this with anybody, or I've never shared this with my best friends, or I've never shared this with my family. And I could tell before they share it, there's this tension. And, people are struggling with, I haven't heard myself say this, or I'm not sure I'm comfortable sharing this. But once they see how somebody else did. And they start to feel it, and they feel the connection, and they feel the humility and the honesty from somebody who they thought was a huge, big, successful CEO. And they're like, wait a minute, this is real. And it's such a relief, it's unburdening. And because of it, it enables people to really see that the success often comes because of the troubles, because of the pains, because of the challenges. And I've often wondered, what is it that separates these CEOs that are so successful from people that had challenges who ended up being taken by those challenges versus those that have chosen to overcome? Obviously, the ones you and I encounter are the ones that have chosen to overcome and to
Yeah,
be fueled by those things. But that's typically what we see.
great. I want to go back to one of the things you said. There was experience. They share from experience. I do think some people might be worried, like, I'm going to get advice from people and all that. So what's the importance of sharing from experience versus advice giving?
First of all, I think the word advice is just the pedestrian language for saying, I need help. But when
Hmm.
somebody says, I want advice, I listen for, okay, do you really want me to tell you what to do? Or do you want me to listen? And do you just need to get it off your chest? Do you want some experiences? Do you want me to ask you questions to help you think through it? What do you actually want? So when we give advice, and this is, something we've been talking about since 1991,
Hmm.
but recently, Harvard Business Review just came out with an article that said when advice is given and it's not taken, the relationship suffers.
Hmm.
Mm. And we all know there's a point in time where our children or our spouses have said, don't tell me what to do. And we all know there's a moment that we've said to somebody, perhaps our parents, don't tell me what to do. And what happens when somebody tells me what to do is it's disempowering. It says, I know what's best for you. And my internal meter's like, whoa, 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 who do you think you are to know what's best for me? I'm the one who has to live with it. I'm the one who has to make the decision. I'm the one who has to live with the consequences. I'm the one who feels a different level of risk in one option versus another. I'm the one who has the emotions and who's living with these emotions. And so the construct in these peer groups is we're going to hear each other's experiences. And in doing so, we're going to get closer. We're all going to be vulnerable. We're going to hear real case studies from which we could all learn. And we're not going to just be prescriptive and tell one person, here's what I think you need to do.
Yeah, it's been transformative for me, that ability to hear, and maybe five, six, seven, eight people share an experience, and I get to glean off, and it makes me think of my situation I'm in, and it makes it just a lot better. And you're right, absolutely. You keep those relationships strong, in fact, even stronger, by being human, is what it's really coming down to. Sometimes some of the challenges, especially if it's a new team at a company, uh, that communication, that feeling of trust, that feeling of uh, I can share that I'm a little bit behind in my project. I'm a little struggling in something like that. How do peer groups, people that are experienced peer groups, how does that just start to transfer from the peer group back into the organization, whatever organization they're in, that skill that they're learning inside the peer group?
I think that is a really, really good question. And I will tell you that often I hear something along the lines of the culture that we have built in this peer group is really the culture we want to have in our company. And so one of our clients, Pathstone, they are out of New Jersey, but they're national and they manage family office wealth. And they're just an incredible rocket ship of a company. They've done about 5 acquisitions since I started working with them a few years ago. And they've used peer groups in a variety of ways. One way they've used peer groups is to merge cultures. So when they've made an acquisition, how do we get the new company folded in? And how do we get on the same page? How do we connect our people and build trust so that we're all moving in the same direction? Another example of peer groups with that company is the Rising Leaders Group. And this is a group of people who are envisioned to be the people that are going to be running this business in a few years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. But they're all leaders in that company. And so whatever they're learning in these peer groups starts to permeate how they treat people on their teams. And so, part of the principles that we live by are obviously being honest, being open, being transparent, speaking your truth, even if it's going to be unpopular, but learning how to do it kindly. And so, in any corporate uh, meeting, when we're starting to work with a new organization, I like to start with Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, just to get the point across of, you know what, if you want to have results and accountability and commitment and healthy conflict, it starts with trust. And we're going to build trust by being open and honest and getting to know each other as human beings and humanizing one another versus just judging one another on the surface based upon whatever way you might default. And when people start to see the humanity in each other, as you said, the relationships are no longer transactional. They are meaningful relationships. And when there are meaningful relationships in an organization, people care about each other and they go over and above for one another. In my second book, the Friendship Advantage, we did some research and we found that companies where people have 4 friends at work have 14% greater profitability than companies where people don't have 4 friends at work.
Wow, that's a great stat. That's good, and it's a fantastic book, and I'll plug it. People should go get the Friendship Advantage.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I'm a leader of a company, I'm hearing this. I'm thinking, man, I'd like to get some of my up and coming rising leaders uh, involved in a peer group. How would you approach or recommend to approach those leaders saying like, hey, this is something I know there's, we call it Midwest nice and our whatever, where sometimes people don't want to share feelings. And maybe this is going to be, wow, this sounds maybe a little touchy feely or something like that. How would you approach people about the power of peer groups in a safe way for them to understand, hey, maybe I want to be involved in this?
Yeah, I mean, listen, in the case of Pathstone, just to be very specific, Matt Fleissig, the CEO, is a member of YPO. And he is just this incredibly energetic, smart, and lovely to deal with human being. So people, he's warm and driven, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
rare combination, I think. And I think it's got something to do with their just incredible accomplishment and growth. And with that, he went to these people and he said, look, this has changed my life. And I've been in a CEO forum with other presidents in YPO, and it's changed my life. And you, my friend, are one of those people that I think could be one of our future leaders. And there's a couple of things that I think are important in you joining this group. One is you're going to build relationships and trust and communication skills for people that you are likely going to be co-leading this company with in a few years. And two, it's going to help your growth along the way so that you're more prepared to lead because you're going to have other smart people that you're going to learn from along this journey. Would you like to participate?
Yeah.
How do you say no to that?
Right. Well, I love it. He's leading with experience, right? His own
Yeah.
experience of why it changed his life, like it's changed my life to be in the EO forum situation. Last question I want to talk to you about is how so internal peer groups. What's the importance of a facilitator or somebody like yourself, or some other organization in the sense of that versus, hey, all right, I'm just going to create my own internal peer group and get 8 of my 75 employees or managers to be in a peer group. Talk to me about the importance of professionalism, probably be the way to say it, or somebody that's experienced at peer groups.
I'm going to give you a real life specific like example that's happening right now. So my son has just gotten his learner's permit. And one of the things that he's begun to fall in love with, which is one of my passions, is cars. And so we got a project car to do some work on. And because we haven't done this work, every time we try to fix something, we watch hours of YouTube And we've had hours of trial and error to figure out how to make it work. So the analogy as it relates to the peer groups, yes, you could pick up my book or not, and you can take a crack at it. And you know what? You might be successful, and I hope you are. And there are some people that have done that, and I've heard from them, we've started 10 peer groups, and I'm like, yay, I'm happy for you. Because again, my mission is every human being in a peer group. But the learning curve and the trial and error and the mistakes you make along the way in getting this launched is a big cost. And if you don't have the time, you need a professional who's going to do it for you, who's done it 1,000 times, so that it's more likely to succeed and more effective. And the other thing is, as a facilitator who's an outsider, I bet you I'm much more comfortable asking very difficult questions, courageous questions that lead to the vulnerable space, that leads to authentic connection, than people may be willing to do on their own when they don't have experience in doing this work. And to me, that's the key, because without those authentic connections, it's just another meeting.
I love that line right there. Without the authentic connections, it's just another meeting. It's personal experience for me. Obviously, I was lucky enough and privileged enough to get involved in the EO organization because somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, this would be a good organization for you. And that was, like I said, 23 years ago now. What's been amazing to watch the journey is, my wife has got involved in spousal forums, which is another type of peer group. I've watched key execs get involved and really just open their mind. I know people in YPO, I know people in Vistage, I know people in other ones, I know people that have gone through your program. Everyone, when they get into it, expands their ability to communicate and authentically, and they're more open. And that, again, that human connection just matters so much to build that trust on Patrick Lencioni's triangle, so you can have all the stuff above the trust line on Patrick Lencioni and get that commitment and get that accountability and get those results. So I appreciate you sharing, Mo. I really do, everything about it and all the stuff you've done. You've been an incredible leader in this space for a few years now,
Thank you.
as we both
Thank
say.
you.
So I
A few
appreciate it.
years.
Yeah, a few years now. So I want to, again, just thank you for being a part of this Bagwood Coach.Win, and I want you to have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you, John. You too. It was a pleasure
Thank
talking
you.
to you. Thank you.